To help you understand the issues of tax administration in Lagos State, we always bring on people with expert knowledge and a wealth of experience in the field. Today is not different. We will be examining the roles of consultants and audit firms in tax administration. To help us to do justice to that, we have Mr. Adeyemi Adediran, partner at Anderson. Anderson is an independent tax and business advisory firm with a worldwide presence. Thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's certainly my pleasure. And I'm sure by the time we're done, viewers will get a better knowledge regarding your roles and responsibilities, most especially within Lagos State.
Absolutely.
How has Anderson contributed to the landscape of tax administration in Nigeria? And can you elaborate on the strategies and mechanisms employed?
I think the first way we have done that is to actually make sure that our clients comply with the relevant provisions of the tax laws. I mean, if the clients understand the tax laws and they comply with it, it's easier for the tax authorities to administer. The other thing we do is to stay close to the to the legislatures, the tax authority, and all relevant stakeholders, so that we understand their thoughts in respect of tax reforms, and then we're able to contribute our views so that whatever changes they want to make to the tax laws, I mean, they can take into consideration our own views on those changes and makes it easier for taxpayers to comply. So I think in those two ways, we'll be able to contribute our own quota in respect to tax reforms and administration.
That's good to know. In the context of navigating gray areas within Nigerian tax laws, how does Anderson approach providing clarity and guidance to its clients while ensuring adherence to the legal framework?
Yeah, there will always be gray areas in the tax laws. That's fundamental. But what we do for our clients is to explain our own understanding of the provision of the tax laws and what the drafters of the law, what their intention was at the time of drafting the laws. And then we then ask our clients, to maybe ask or seek for a private ruling with the tax authority to understand their own views on those gray areas. Sometimes our views and the tax authority's views are maybe in conflict. In that instance, we advise our clients to probably seek judicial interpretation of those areas.
What is Anderson's stance on tax avoidance, and how does it uphold ethical standards?
Okay, tax avoidance is not illegal. It's a legal way of reducing your taxes. I think the reason why most people frown at it is because of the ethical issues surrounding it. For instance, if you and I are paying taxes and you hear that a billionaire somewhere is not paying any tax at all because of the tax haven or some restructuring that he has done, you will feel that you are contributing your own quota, and somebody that earns much more than you do is not doing anything at all. So people usually frown against such aggressive tax planning that are done by some taxpayers, but it's not illegal. In fact, there's a whole court case in the US, I think it's Evelyn and Gregory, where a taxpayer, Evelyn Gregory, did some tax planning, some aggressive tax planning while restructuring her business. And when she was done, she had huge tax savings. And the tax commissioner at the time in the US frowned against those tax planning that she employed and took her to court. When the matter got to the Court of Appeal, the judges said that, you can't stop a taxpayer from taking measures to reduce his or her taxes as low as possible. In fact, that there's no patriotic obligation, to pay higher taxes than you should. So taxpayers will always plan around their taxes using the provisions or the loopholes in the tax laws. That is constant. What I think should happen is that as long as the government continues to be transparent, or the government actually connects what the taxpayers pay to the social amenities that they provide, when the taxpayers are able to see that connection between the taxes that they pay and their improved conditions of living, then they will be willing to pay the taxes that is due. And then tax avoidance is going to reduce significantly.
Additionally, could you outline your principles and approach to handling instances of potential tax evasion, particularly if they were to conflict with the prevailing laws?
Tax evasion is illegal, all right? So we always advise our clients to pay the right tax as at when due. It's not just to pay the tax, but you need to pay it based on the timeline stipulated by the laws. So that is a given. You need to pay your taxes as provided by the Constitution. And what I think is that it's even in the best interest of the taxpayers to do so, because there are stiff penalties in the tax laws. In some cases, there are even jail terms stipulated in the tax laws. We hear in other climes you hear about an artist that you don't see producing any song for a while, and then the next thing you hear is that the artist has been in jail for tax evasion.
Regarding tax audit reconciliation meetings conducted by the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service, LIRS, what key roles does Anderson undertake in resolving tax issues for his clients with a tax authority like the LIRS?
So what we do is to represent our clients in those tax audits. So we'll explain the client's tax position to the LIRS, and we'll also explain the financial records leading to those taxes that are payable by the client to the LIRS. And I would say over the years, reconciliation has been a lot easier because I think the LIRS has actually done a lot of manpower development. So it's easier to sit on a table with LIRS officials to resolve reconciliation issues.
Mr. Adeyemi, your answers have been quite helpful so far, but we need to go on a quick break at this point.
Thank you.
We're going on a short break. When we get back, we'll pick up from where we left off.
Hello, sir. Good evening. How may I assist you?
I made a reservation for a room. My name is Ahmad.
Excellent, Mr. Modu. A moment, please. You made a reservation for our deluxe suite for 2 nights. That will be 150,000 naira, sir. How would you like to make payment? Cash or card?
Card.
Okay. Thank you. Savings or current, sir?
Current.
Your PIN, please.
Thank you. You don't charge 5% consumption tax here?
No, sir. We don't do that.
Really? You're running a hospitality business and you're not charging 5% consumption tax?
No.
Hold on a minute. Hey, bro.
Alpha.
Yeah, I am at an apartment in Ogba, and the receipt issued to me did not reflect the payment or deduction of consumption tax.
Oh, really? Thanks for the heads up. I will send a team to investigate.
I mean, they should be penalized.
Attention, all service apartment owners and operators in the hospitality business in Lagos State must charge and remit consumption tax to LIRS. Failure to comply is a contravention of the extant provisions in Section 9 of the HORC Law 2009, which attracts penalties as stipulated in Section 10 and 11 of the same law. Stay on the right side of the law.
Welcome back. We're still discussing roles of consultants and audit firms in tax administration. Mr. Adeyemi Adediran, partner at Anderson, is still with us. You've succeeded in clearing a few things for me, and I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
With the aim of upholding operational integrity and given your involvement in the Lagos State tax system, how do you sustain adherence to international best practices in your advisory services, especially when addressing intricate tax issues involving clients and the LIRS?
Okay, for intricate tax issues, right? From experience, what we found out is that most times it's better to have a one-on-one conversation with the LIRS to discuss those issues, because we may be looking at the same provisions of the tax laws from 2 different perspectives. And when you exchange letters, you may not be communicating as effectively as you should. So most times we organize meetings with the LIRS, and then we're able to understand each other and resolve those issues. Moving away from that, for us, our own approach to resolving issues is, one of our core values is best in class, and we also have some kind of independence in our manner of approach with the tax authorities and taxpayers and other stakeholders, because we don't do statutory audits. So with that in mind, we're able to independently assess a situation and advise our clients accordingly. So sometimes our clients may also be in the wrong, and we're able to say, okay, this is what the provisions of the law says. This is what you have done wrongly, and this is how we can make amends. In other cases, we're able to go to the tax authorities and say, well, there's an unintentional or unintended error in this matter. Can we have a waiver and seek to comply going forward? Those kind of conversations have to be held to resolve those kind of issues. The fundamental thing that is in focus is to make sure that the taxpayer is compliant with the provisions of the tax laws, and the tax authority is unduly punitive, to the taxpayers. And at the end of the day, we are good for it. Yeah.
That's great to know. Are there international bodies or organizations that oversee or regulate the practice of Andersen in the context of its operations within the tax domain? Could you provide insight into the level of scrutiny that your firm undergoes in its consultancy and audit activities?
Just like you said when you were introducing me, right? Andersen belongs to Andersen Global, which is a network of independent member firms in over 172 countries across the world. So we are guided by the standards that are set by Andersen Global, and they conduct periodic checks from time to time to ensure that we are there with those standards. So when we are dealing with clients, when we are dealing with regulatory authorities, beyond the ethics requirements in dealing with those stakeholders, we have, I wouldn't say a higher standard to comply with, but I'll just say that we have Andersen Global to face, in conducting our affairs. So our documentations, our interactions with the various stakeholders have to comply with those standards such that we don't run foul of the law. So we are conversant of the kind of environment we operate in and the ethical requirements, But so on a day-to-day basis, with that understanding in mind, we ensure that we don't run foul of any ethical standards. Yeah.
That's great. Recognizing the proactive efforts of tax agencies like LIRS in promoting tax education, how does Andersen contribute meaningfully to these endeavors?
So I think what we do in Andersen, is to issue newsletters and alerts with respect to any new developments that comes up from the LIRS. Maybe the LIRS wants to provide clarification on certain provisions of the tax laws, or they've introduced new tools, So what we do is to educate our clients to say, okay, this is a new development, and these are new obligations that you have to comply with in fulfilling your tax requirements. So we do that on a constant basis. We also go on TV stations, interviews like this one, to educate members of the public on the new requirements that the LRS has issued. Beyond that, for example, during the VADES initiative, we went from one company to another to explain what the intent of the VADES regime was all about, what the VADES order was all about. And we did that. We even went to religious bodies, to explain. So we do our bit in enlightening members of the public and taxpayers on new development in the tax space, and we work in conjunction with LRS and other tax authorities in doing that.
Mr. Adeyemi, we just need to take one more question before we wrap up this discussion. In light of the evolving nature of tax regulations, how does Andersen stay abreast of changes and updates to ensure that the advice provided to clients remains accurate, compliant, and in line with the latest legal requirements?
Yeah, so I think the first thing we do is to make sure that all members of our tax and regulatory unit have a very deep understanding of the provisions, of the existing provisions of the tax law, so that they can advise their clients accordingly. What we also do is to do some form of advocacy. We look at an industry and we see that maybe the tax laws governing the activities in that industry are maybe obsolete and needs to be updated. We engage, the legislature and even the tax authority to bring their attention to this part of the tax laws so that they can possibly make changes. And also, we have a close relationship with LRS,
That's good.
in ensuring that whatever new introduction that they are making to the tax to the implementation of the tax laws, easy for taxpayers to comply.
We've been speaking with Mr. Adeyemi Adediran, partner at Anderson, who has managed to help us paint a clearer picture of roles of consultants and audit firms in tax administration on the Tax Talk today. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, sir.
Thank you for having me.
It's certainly my pleasure. This is where we let him off the hook, and we appreciate him for his contributions on the show today. It's been awesome so far.